Hi, welcome to today's Yin Flow with Myles Jeffers, founder of Seneca Strength. So I'm predominantly a strength and conditioning coach, but after years of injuries and stiffness, I started exploring the world of yoga and haven't looked back since. So Yin Yoga is close to my heart in terms of what it's done for me personally, and I'm happy to share it with anyone who's interested. So we're gonna get right into it, guys, but first just gotta do my due diligence. Make sure that you're someone who can be practicing yoga and there's nothing that your doctor's telling you that should prevent you from doing this. And besides that, we want to remember the three tattvas, three principles of Yin Yoga. First one is that we come into the pose at the appropriate depth. That means we're not trying too hard and we're not using muscular energy to pull ourselves deeper. We're definitely not getting to such an intense sensation that we're shortening our breath, screwing up our face. We're having to shift around a whole bunch. So make sure that it's about a 4 to 6 in sensation. If you're an athlete, think more 4 because you have a tendency to overdo it. And then let things kind of ease in. Let yourself melt into the poses as opposed to forcing yourself into the poses. The second is that we're going to find stillness. So once we find that depth, then we want to stop moving. And that's where the mental side of Yin Yoga comes in, because you'll find that it's hard to stay focused and not fidget and move around for 2 to 10 minutes at a time for certain poses. And the last principle is that we hold for time, and that's kind of alluded to in the first two, but what that should tell you is that we can't be in too intense of a sensation range, because that's not going to allow us to hold for time. So duration is far more important than intensity when it comes to Yin Yoga. All right, so any bad, painful sensations, come out of the pose and just skip it. We shouldn't be feeling any pain, but a bit of discomfort's fine. So we're going to get started with a little bit of an opening meditation. So I'm going to ask you to do ocean's breath. So if you imagine like fogging up a glass window, that's the kind of sound that we want to create with our throat throughout ocean's breath. You're probably not going to hear mine because there's an ocean behind me. So work on that sound. That's called Ujjayi breath or ocean's breath, and that's a Pranayama practice. So we're going to inhale, nice count, 1, 2, 3, 4, bit of a pause at the top. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, bit of a pause, and then we begin inhaling again. So you don't have to follow the 4-6 ratio or anything like that, but just make sure that we're pausing a bit at the top and the bottom of each breath, and that our exhalation is somewhat slower than our inhalation. So let's start with our opening meditation. So you guys are focusing on ocean's breath. And while you're sitting here breathing, I'm gonna start you with a bit of a quote that you can consider through this practice. So this comes from a Zen philosopher or Zen master named Yun Men. And here's the quote, I really like it. In walking, just walk. In sitting, just sit. Above all, don't wobble. So I'll let you consider that one. So we'll continue breathing for a few more minutes here. This is when we really arrive into the practice. We start grounding ourselves, forgetting about the rest of the day, what's happened before, what's coming after. And do your best to stay in this room right here for the next hour and a bit. You've earned it. And worrying about anything else at this point isn't going to help any of those things or yourself. You've carved out an hour for yourself, so use it wisely. wherever you're at now, continue and finish up 3 more rounds of breath, and then when you're ready, get going. Alright, so you can gently open your eyes, move a little bit if you want, but move slowly, move gently. We're going to come into our first pose. We're going to focus on the low back. So we're going to get into a flat on our back position to start, supine position. And then we're going to bring our heels to our butt. Lightly engage your core. We're going to lift our hips up. And we're going to place the block under our sacrum, which is the flat part of your low back. So if you're feeling sensation by now, you're good. You don't have to go any deeper, and there's no real added benefit like the reverse if you try to go too deep too soon. So I like to start here for about the first minute. And if I feel comfortable, then I'm going to walk my feet out. And relax here. If you're in this position, you have no sensation, then we're going to move the block to its next height. Same thing there. If it continues to not be enough sensation, then we move it to the highest height. I will not demo that today. Practicing Yin Yoga, it's good to be aware of your breath and make sure that it stays steady throughout. And if your breath rate increases, you're likely trying too hard. The other thing I want you to think about with your breath is that we want to be breathing space, breathing into the area that we're stretching. So in this pose here, I'm sending that breath down to my low back, feeling an extra bit of sensation with each breath. So I create space as I inhale, tension as I exhale. So if your mind starts wandering and leaves the room, a good way to bring it back is just to bring your focus and awareness back towards your breath. You can do simple things like notice a little sensation in your nose as you breathe in, warmer sensation as you exhale. Higher level, walk your feet in now and move back to the next level. And if you're on the first level, just walk your feet back in. Stay here for a little bit longer. So gently now, we're going to squeeze our tummy a little bit, drive through our heels to bring our hips up. We're going to remove the block and slowly, one vertebrae at a time, lower our back down. And walk your feet out as well. And you can rest in Shavasana for a little bit here, or if you prefer a bit of movement, you can pull your knees into your chest very gently, rock side to side a little bit, or you can go windshield wipers. Back a little bit of a release. press ourselves back up into a seated position. We're gonna get into our next pose, and this one's a great pose for people with tight quads and hip flexors or front hip. So this is called cat pulling its tail pose. Yeah, I'll do it facing this way. So all we have to do here is we can stretch out our legs to the front of our mat, and then we're gonna just come lean down on one elbow. I like to use a block here for a bit of extra support. Then in this position here, all we're gonna do is grab our left leg. We can relax here, and if that's a good enough sensation, that's fine. Let's stay here and hold it. If you have a bit more range, you can bring it back and hook the foot under, and then rest the arm and really relax into this one. So we're gonna be in this for about 3 minutes aside. I apologize, I'm gonna grab my clock. A bit of technical difficulties today. And let's begin. So again, we shouldn't feel any bad pain here. Discomfort is fine, but we shouldn't have any knee pain in this position. Should be hip flexor, front of the hip, and the quad. Again, trying to breathe space into this side. Give yourself a little check. Are you holding any tension over here? Are you resisting? Too deep? Then just let yourself melt. Don't stop talking so much. About halfway. So if you feel like you've gained some range, you can go a little bit deeper, but only go deeper if you're not feeling a sensation anymore. So ever so gently and slowly, let's release that back leg. We're just going to come back up into a seated position. And roll those quads out a little bit, get some blood flow back on that side. Now we're going to switch to the other side. So same deal over here. If you'd like a block for the elbow, go with it. If not, that is fine as well. Rolling over to the left side now. Right leg, and we can start here until it loosens, or we can hook our foot right off the bat. It's very normal to feel differences side to side in this pose. So body symmetry is a bit of a myth, a textbook myth, but in the real world, most of us have pretty significant imbalances. So totally normal to feel more tightness on one side than the other. Don't overthink it. Doing what you need to do to address it anyhow. The halfway mark. So if you want to go a little bit deeper, or a better statement would be if you need to go a little bit deeper, then do so. But if you're good where you are, just hang out, stay. So another thing with Yin Yoga that I think is important is that you're very comfortable when you're doing. So this is one where I don't think it's a great idea to worry too much about how you look. These aren't very sexy, flashy poses. And on top of that, we want to have blood flow and we want to feel loose. So I really recommend skipping the tight yoga pants and wearing something nice and loose fitting and warm and cozy. So think more like Danish hygge than like yoga class on Instagram for followers. So I'm a little worried myself at this point because I didn't dress properly for today. It's actually not that much above freezing here, despite how nice it looks. So my toes are likely going to get a little bit cold during this practice. So next time, I'm definitely going to bring some big old wool socks, and then I would be comfy here. So make sure before we get into this that you really spend some time cultivating your space and your outfit, and that it's what you need for this, and it's going to serve the practice. Check, are you holding tension, gripping anywhere, clenching anywhere? That includes your face, anywhere else, your feet. Ever so slowly and gently once again, release that back leg, roll over, back into a seated position, roll those quads a little bit. A little bit of light movement is okay. You can freestyle that. Don't do anything drastic, don't start doing burpees in between, but a little bit of movement that just naturally comes to you is totally fine. So after cat pulling its tail, I often go right into cactus arms pose, because we're kind of there already in a sense. So you guys can stay where you are, but I'm going to switch sides of my mat just to illustrate the pose. So we're going to come into a face down position on our mat. We're going to start on our right side here. So all we're going to do is make cactuses with our arms, and then we're going to bring our right arm out to our side. We're going to bring our left hand into just under our armpit. We're going to use that to roll ourselves over until we feel a sensation in our right shoulder or pectoral. I'm already feeling something. because I've done too many push-ups in my life, so I'm going to stop right here. If you have more range, you can come quite a bit over and even wrap this leg behind. But all we're really focusing on here is that right shoulder. Also not a bad idea to grab a block for your head if you're uncomfortable. So rest into this one, guys. I recommend really focusing on breathing into that right shoulder. Don't think we have to be super strict with the position here. It could be a little lower, it could be a little less of an angle at our elbow, or more of an angle. So make sure you freestyle until you find a positive stretch in that shoulder. Sometimes it takes a minute or so to even find a pose in yin, and that's fine. Something to look out for in this position is numbness and tingling in the arm. We do not want that to occur. So if that's happening, you're a bit too deep, roll out a bit and let some blood back in. Or you can come right out and just rest. All right? We got about another minute here. Gently roll back to the middle, and for a little rest in between here, let's just go arms down at our sides, and we're going to bring our right cheek down to the mat. Sorry, our left cheek down to the mat. So coming into the other side now. So working on the left side, we're going to use our right arm to help us roll over. And again, this is one where you definitely may notice differences side to side. I didn't mention on the last side, but don't worry a ton about what you're doing with your legs here. Focus on the shoulder. Yin isn't about how we look, it's about what we are feeling. Remember to focus on your breath, breathing space into that shoulder, releasing tension when we exhale. Checking the rest of your body, making sure that you're not clenching or gripping. We are just relaxing, floating. So if you want to go a little bit deeper, now would be the time, or just adjust in general. That is good on this side. So once again, let's roll just to the middle. Bring our cheek to the other side and rest our hands down for a little bit. So our next pose, all we're going to do is we're going to bring our hands under our armpits. We're going to push up into a tabletop position, nice and gently. Let's bring our knees under our hips, meet our big toes in the back, and then we're going to push ourselves back into a child's pose. If you're too tight to get your butt onto your heels, put a block over your heels. That's going to bring your heels closer to your butt. From here, we want to relax and reach out with our arms, letting our chest fall down to the ground and our head rest. Again, if you don't have a ton of range, you may be someone who likes a a block under their forehead. I'm one of those people. So be in here for a good while, so really relax, make sure you're in a comfortable position, and chill. Focus on breathing space into your low back here. Like you have a bit more range to find at this point, you can remove the block, reach your arms up a little bit more, get a little bit deeper. back to life here. We're going to use our hands to walk ourselves back. We can come up into a tabletop here. So we're going to take a little bit of a brief respite from the yin and do a teeny bit of movement here. We're going to do 5 cat-cow and then a little bit of breathing before we continue on. So for cat-cow, we're going to inhale, draw our belly down, belly button down to the ground, and arch our back as much as we can, lifting our head up. Then we're going to exhale, we're going to curl our tailbone down, rounding our back, creating space between our shoulders and ribs. And inhaling again. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. So for our breathing, we're gonna kind of get 2 birds stoned at once here. So we're gonna kind of do it in a pose. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna sit down onto the soles of our feet. That may seem like nothing for a lot of people, and for me currently it is, but you know, 5-6 years ago when I was just finishing my sports career, I couldn't do this. I would be stuck about here and things would be horribly painful. So if that's where you are, I feel for you, but also use a block. And then we can work on this pose and we can start gaining some range in this position. So now it's a lot more manageable. There's another area where we may feel some discomfort, and if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of space in the knees or you have a meniscus injury, this may not be feeling that great for you. So something that you can do to create space in between the knee joint, and I had to use this for a couple years. You take a belt or a small blanket and we fold it over. And then we're going to bring that in between our knee joint, into our knee pit, if you will. And now as we come back, that's going to create a bit of space in that joint so it shouldn't be as pinchy. So those are a couple options you can try. So we're going to sit in here. We're going to do a bit of Nadi Shodhan breathing, which is one of my favorite Pranayama breathing techniques. What we're going to do is we're going to use this hand position. I forget the name of it today, and that's okay. We're going to plug our right nostril with our thumb, left nostril with our ring finger. We're going to start by inhaling on our left side for a count of 5. We're going to hold a bit at the top, switch sides, exhale for more than 5, hold a bit at the bottom. Same nostril on the way up, switch nostrils at the top, exhale again. So we're just going to do 5 rounds and then get back into our poses. So everybody begin by plugging your right nostril, and we're going to inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold and switch nostrils, exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold. Same nostril, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold and switch, exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold and switch. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, hold and switch. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold. I'll leave you on your own for the next 3. So finish up your last round if you're not already finished. And I apologize, the next pose doesn't feel that nice. This is the toe squat. So what we're gonna do here now, we're gonna shift our weight forward, but we're gonna tuck our toes under now. Try to get your pinky in the game, keep our knees together, and we're gonna shift our weight back. For a lot of us, this is where we're gonna stop. This was me for quite a few years doing this stuff. Only recently have I been able to walk myself up and sit back onto my heels. You can do the same thing here if you're not quite there, and sit in this position. So your feet, they can take a fair bit of discomfort here. So this is maybe the most spicy yin pose that I can think of, at least for myself. So we can have a bit of a higher sensation on this one. All right, so when we're ready, let's get those toes tucked. We're gonna come on up and deal with the suck. Poses like this is where we want to fidget, check our nails, think of anything else, but try to focus on what you are doing right now and focus on your breath. It's a great mental practice, delaying immediate gratification for later reward. Immediate gratification in this case would be coming out of the pose. More breath, stick with it, stick with it. All right, we've made it, so let's shift our weight forward. Tap those feet out, wake them up. And we're going to stay right here for our next pose. We're going to come into a wrist stretch. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring our fingers towards our knees. And I'm already feeling a stretch here, so if you get significant sensation, you're fine. If you want a bit more, we start leaning back a bit, or keeping our weight forward and bending the elbow if you want to give the toes a bit of a rest. Alright, so we're not going to be in this one quite as long. Generally speaking, the smaller the joint, the shorter the pose. So we'll only be in this for a minute. Out of that. Gently move those wrists a little bit just to get the blood back. Before you have time to fret about it, we're going to come right into the toe squat once again. So same position. You'll notice a bit of a difference this time. See if you can get a little bit deeper, deal with a little bit more. Since I'm in an upright position here, it's a good time to use this time to talk a little bit about belly breathing. And probably should have done that before the Nadi Shodhan, but something that a lot of people actually are not aware of is where their breath goes when they breathe throughout the day. And a lot of people who have stressful jobs or have never been taught belly breathing, breathe into their lungs. When they inhale, the lungs rise. When they exhale, the lungs fall. That's kind of disordered breathing. What we want to focus on actually is breathing into our diaphragm. Just the mere act of breathing into the belly and the diaphragm can reduce stress. So a good way to learn it is just to keep your hand on your belly. Then as we inhale, we want the air to come into our tummy and expand. And we exhale, the tummy comes in. Inhale, it's out. Exhale, it comes in. So that's a real small thing that we can do during the day as a little mental check. If we're getting stressed, chances are you're breathing back up high. We bring that breath back down low, the stress will also lower. Almost there. Talking was a nice distraction for me anyway. And we've made it. Once again, let's roll forward. Tap those out. And since we're here, we'll finish with another wrist stretch. This time, if you like, you can explore a little bit. Gentle movement side to side. Getting some good compression here and a good stretch. Those. Shake them out a little bit, roll them out. Don't do anything drastic, no shaking. So we're gonna get a little bit into our hips now. So we're gonna come into a push-up position. I'm not doing push-ups, don't worry. Oh, that might be easier. So starting a push-up position, we're gonna lift our left leg as high as we can. Then we're gonna bring it to the outside of our left hand. We're gonna bring that right knee down and release the foot. We're also going to bring our, make sure that our left foot, we're doing a wing drag, and it's to the outside of our mat, and we're going to angle it out a little bit to open that hip. So on this side, I'm letting my hip fall open, and on this side, I'm letting my hip fall down. I really want you to think about the weight of your hips here, and imagine letting gravity do the work. If this feels like really intense, do not worry. We can come up onto blocks. We can even rest our elbows on blocks here for a little bit more rest. I often do that. But if we have a bit of upper body strength, we're fine to hang out here as well. As long as we're using muscular energy quite a distance away from the area we're stretching, that's somewhat okay in Yin. So focus on breathing space into our hips here. Checking for tension. It's really easy to catch yourself clenching in this one. Add a bit of a kink. If you're really liking this, stay there. We're not doing much different anyway. All we're going to do is bring our right hand into the middle. We're going to twist open a bit to the left side. Really focus on letting that right side fall down. Even push out a teeny bit to the left. yourself from clenching. If I could go back in time and do my athletic career again, something I would certainly do is more yoga, more stretching, and less lifting, and less practicing of the sport even. Years ago I read an article about the NFL Combine, and the main criticism against players was lack of hip mobility, and that's at the NFL Combine, and that's some of the best athletes in the world. So for us general folks and young athletes getting into more competitive levels of the sport, and let's come on out, guys. So let's come back to the middle. We're just going to push ourselves back, release that leg. You can move a bit here if you want, side to side, push it to down dog. Return to our push-up position. We're going to raise our right leg all the way up, bring it to the outside of our right hand, lower the left knee, release the left foot. So back to what I was saying before, if you're a young athlete trying to improve yourself, sure, getting in the gym, lifting weights, putting on some muscle is a part of it, but your hip mobility is essential for a few reasons. One, there's only two ways we can get faster in sport: increasing stride frequency, which is power and strength, but the other is stride length, and that's what we're doing right now. So I always say that lifting weights and training may make you better at your sport, but doing this is what's going to allow you to continue playing it for many years to come. And a lot of extremely talented people have had careers just cut short by preventable injuries. Kind of wrap that up, I guess I could even say, like, it doesn't have to be an hour-long yin flow necessarily, but even, let's say, doing these two poses 3 times a week is far better than most are doing. So now let's bring our left hand into the middle. We're going to rotate open again. We can push a bit here if we'd like to, but we don't have to. This one is another one too where it may be obvious that you feel a lot more spice on one side compared to the other. Last few breaths here, so make them count, melt as much as you can. Remember, gravity's doing the work here. Alright, so ever so gently, let's come back to the middle. Release that leg, and we're going to push into down dog. Walk those feet a little bit here, a bit of counter movement. And then come back into a hands and knees position. From here, we're going to get into one of my favorite shoulder poses, melting heart with the shoulder variation. So we're going to go on our left side first here. So it's similar to child's pose, but not quite. So we're going to move our right hand up a little bit. Then we're going to start by sliding that left hand under. Then we're going to come all the way down into a resting position here. So we should be feeling a stretch across this side of our left arm. Good idea to have a block close to rest your head if you don't quite get all the way down like me. If you're advanced, you should be picky about your hips, maintaining hip over knee. But if you're someone stiffer, I don't see that is essential because we're focused on the shoulder. All right. So come on down. We're going to hang out here, not quite as long as the other poses since it is an upper body, smaller joint stretch. Take your time, make sure you're comfy, and even though it's an awkward one, make sure you feel somewhat relaxed. Actually feel pretty comfy here despite how weird this looks. Breathing space to our left side here. Sorry, I had an inappropriate thought. If I wanted more followers on Instagram, I'd wear yoga pants and do this facing the other way. Sorry, I'm a bit cynical. So ever so gently we're going to release. And we're just going to push into child's pose for a counter here. You can have hands above or hands down your sides, whatever feels better to you. Just schlop a bit here. Let's come back on up and let's flow into the other side. So we're going to move our left hand a little bit up higher on our mat, slide our right hand under, find that stretch down the right side of our body and shoulder, then rest. Last side, I actually had my head facing the other, or to the side. You can do that, you don't have to. You can go straight down as well. Whatever's going to allow you to get the best stretch. So gently come on out of that. And sit back onto your heels again here. Let's just roll the shoulders a couple times. So we're coming into the last little bit here. So we only got 2 more poses before our final rest. So for today's practice, you are required to have a band or elastic loop, an elastic band, a yoga strap, an old belt, t-shirt, whatever you got. We're gonna come into a supine hamstring stretch, and this is one that I don't know many people who would benefit from doing this on a weekly basis. So let's come onto our back in a nice comfortable position. We're gonna grab our yoga strap, we're gonna loop it around our right leg, right around the ball of our foot. Now, if you have a band that's long enough, you can wrap it all the way around on your armpits and be really restful. I don't have that length on this band, so I'm gonna wrap it around my wrists a couple times, so I'm not using a ton of muscular energy. So we're gonna straighten our left leg out here. We're gonna be in this one for a good while. So we have a little bit of a bend in the knee. Make sure our hips stay square, and then let's deal with the sensation. Really focus on breathing into your hamstring here, and notice that you may gain significant range throughout this 2.5, 3 minutes. The more restful you can be, the better here. Halfway, so if you got a bit more range, draw your leg in a little bit closer. Bet you got a little bit more in you. Check the rest of your body. Are you clenching your feet? Neck? Are you breathing shallow? Gently, let's lower and release that right leg. Let's just lay flat for a bit here. Notice how you feel side to side. You might feel a lot longer in your right leg. I always kind of enjoy that sensation. But no rest for the wicked, so we'll get into the other side here. So let's wrap around the ball of our left foot. Make sure we're in a restful as possible position. The other side. necessarily. Or are you sandbagging the stretch? Maybe you can come a little bit deeper. Or only if necessary. My strength and conditioning coaching, one of the things I really enjoy teaching people is how to hip hinge properly and stop themselves from hurting their back. But what has been very noticeable through that is that most people's hamstrings are way too tight for them to bend over to any significant distance with like a proper hip hinge. So if you're someone with back pain, hamstrings are a great place to start. It's likely only going to improve you. This is a pretty simple stretch, right? So it shouldn't be unrealistic to be able to do this 3 times a week if you need to improve your mobility. So let's gently release. Same thing, let's just lie flat for a bit, wiggle those out. And we can release the band. So we're coming into our last pose, and lately this has been my absolute favorite as someone with a fair bit of tight neck issues and shoulder injuries in my past. So this is called the thoracic opener. What we're gonna do is we're gonna lie down onto our block, but we're gonna place the block vertically between our shoulder blades. So I generally like lining it up on the mat and then coming down. So make sure that it's between the shoulder blades. Our arms are going to come just out to our sides, and then our head is resting. If you don't have that range, you can put a pad, a towel, a block, something here to bring the floor a little bit closer. If not, you can melt right into this one. Make sure we're getting a nice sensation opening across our chest. Then you can also notice the difference if we keep our mouth closed or keep our mouth open. On relaxing the shoulders. It's even a good idea to take them right now and just pull them down, pull them towards your heels, then come back and relax. I really do not recommend moving your neck in this position, but I'm going to do it because I got to look at the clock on occasion here. So make sure you stay still and square in this one, and do as I say, not as I do. About halfway here. If you haven't tried it yet, notice the difference between an open and closed mouth. If you have a bit of range, you can maybe open up a bit more in your throat at this point. Pose, but you got to be very gentle. So first thing I recommend you doing is grabbing your head with your hands, pulling yourself up, and then cupping the back of your head with one hand. And then just roll over to the side here. Remove the block. And now we're into our favorite pose of the practice, Shavasana. So for Shavasana, we lie flat, we spread our legs a little bit wider than usual, and then we bring our hands just off of our mats. And I recommend going palms up. This is a good time to get a little cozy, put on a blanket, some big socks, cover your eyes even. So make sure you feel restful. So when we're in Shavasana, I want you to focus on melting away. I'm going to be telling a bit of a story today, so you're going to be listening to me if you want to, but if not, you can just completely drift and let the world melt. Don't focus on breathing, don't focus on anything. If anything, just focus on the weight of your body and the support of the ground. So I'm going to come off camera for this, let you guys enjoy the ocean view and tell a little story. Paul's car broke down in front of an old monastery. He knocked on the gate and was welcomed by the monks who hosted him for the night, repaired his car, and wished him a good journey. Before he left, Paul asked the monks about the source of a wondrous sound he had heard during the night. They answered, "We cannot reveal this because you are not a monk." So Paul went on his way, but he never forgot the sound. Several years later, his tire went flat in front of the same monastery. The monks welcomed him, fed him, and fixed his tire again. That night, he heard the same amazing sound he had heard years earlier. Again he inquired, but received the same reply: "We cannot tell you, you are not a monk." But now Paul understood why fate had brought him here. He had to learn the source of this sound. "All right," he said, "I shall become a monk. What must I do?" He was told that he must travel the world and count every crucifix in every church on the planet. So his journey began. Facing great hardship, passing through war zones, traveling to tiny villages isolated in mountains, he hiked for 38 years. Finally, he returned. "I have traveled the earth and found out what you have asked for. I found 362,578 crucifixes in all the churches in the world." The monks bowed in respect. "Congratulations, you are now a monk and we will show you the way to the sound. They led him to a wooden door and gave him a key. Seek and you will find, they said. Behind that door, he found a dark cave and a series of other doors with their keys hidden somewhere in the darkness. Days later, he found the final key and opened the door and was simply amazed to find the source of the strange and wondrous sound that was worth all of his journeys. But I cannot tell you any more, my friend, because you are not a monk. Now that's kind of a funny story, but what it is a lesson in non-attachment. So to simply sum that up, it means that if you're having a great day, enjoy it because it's not going to last. If you're having a bad day, don't sweat it because that's also not going to last. The only guarantee we have in life is change. So I'll let you rest for a little bit longer here, then we'll come out of Shavasana. So ever so gently start with the slightest movements you can think of. Maybe that's wiggling your pinky finger, your pinky toe, and then slowly working your way up, flexing a hand, squeezing a foot, a cat, quad, flex your glutes, gently start moving, but take your time. Once you're ready, you're going to roll over onto your left side. You can place your left hand under your head in a little bit of a fetal position. Take 3 lovely breaths to end your practice. And then press through your right hand and gently come up into a seated position. Once you're seated, we're going to bring our hands into the middle of our chest. We're going to gently bow our head forward. Light in me recognizes and appreciates the light in you. I thank you for sharing your practice with me today. Namaste. I'm Cole.